So we are going to get into before and after photos, and I want to talk to you all about the do's and the don'ts, because it's one of the hardest things to master, and practice definitely makes perfect. So we are going to talk about why your before and after photos are so important, and we're going to talk about how to keep them consistent as well. Okay. All right, so here are some before and after photos here, and I just want to get into a couple bullet points before we get into things. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, what are you using for marketing on your website? Now, it's one thing to have web copies on your web page that discuss all about, the technologies and what they do, what they're treating exactly, but at the end of the day, your patients are going to want to see results, right? Next, you want to look at what are you posting on your social media. Now, on the next slide, we're going to get into statistics, percentages of what people are looking at when they go to your webpage. So I'm not going to jump to that just yet, but I think the main takeaway here is that this industry is growing at such a rapid pace, and competition is growing with that. Although it's healthy competition, you still have to be able to differentiate yourself from other practices. You have to make yourself stand apart. You also have to look at what tools you're using in a consultation. Now, Heather Allen, our practice development specialist in the Northeast, created a webinar that you should all watch because she is the guru, the queen of the consultation process. You will have access to it on the YouTube channel, Sinclair North America. But I want to talk specifically about how during that consultation process, you have to show your patients before and after photos. Let me give you an example. If you had a patient come into your practice and after the consultation at the end, you decide that they'd be a great candidate for IPL treatments, maybe a package of 5 of them because they have solar lentigo, sunspots on the face. The next question they're going to ask you is, well, you just gave me the cost breakdown for this and it does seem kind of pricey. So with that being said, do you have any before and after photos I can take a look at just to make sure this is worthwhile, worth my time, my money? Absolutely. Here you go. Here's my portfolio, before and after photos. This treatment is exactly what you need, and you are going to get results. Now, don't stress if you're first starting out and maybe you haven't built your portfolio yet, because at the end of the day, a lot of companies, Sinclair North America included, we provide you with photographs. And these before and after photos are from you guys. As you build your portfolios, we take those photos and we utilize them as well. So you can always start that way. And I remember when I was a brand new nurse in aesthetics, I didn't have much of a portfolio. So what I would do is I would go into that consultation, I would tell the patient what I felt they would truly benefit from, and then I would offer them a discount on a package of treatments and say, listen, these are photographs from the device that we're going to use on you, but I would love to add your pictures, your results, to my own portfolio, so when I have my next patient, just like yourself sitting in the chair, now I can show them how amazing and excited you were about your results. The next thing you want to look at is how are you showing a combination approach that's going to bring in more return on investment. Now, when we talk about combination approach or combination therapy, it's never going anywhere. But at the end of the day, now instead of one technology, we're combining multiple technologies. It's going to give your patient results faster, but it's also more chair time, so it's going to be more expensive. Your patient, again, is going to have to justify the reason for spending that amount of money, and you have to show them it's worthwhile. Then the last couple things you want to look at are how are you making your patients happy with their results, and are you building trust with them? Now, this has actually happened to me, but when we talk about energy-based devices, I mean, all of them, they take multiple treatments because regenerative medicine is building your own collagen. When we talk about that, it takes about 3 to 6 months to really, truly see those benefits. So during your consultation with the patient, of course, talk about those things, but remember, your patient's going to be looking at themselves in the mirror every day saying, am I noticing all of those changes that she's talking about? I'm not sure. Before and after photos are what save you and are what makes your patient happy. I'm going to give you an example. When I had a patient come in for a body contouring treatment, I set realistic expectations with her. I said, listen, we're going to do a series of however many treatments. I want you to schedule your 3-month follow-up with me after your last treatment before you even head out today. So this way we can get you on the books, and I want to have you sit down and look at this before and after photo and say, wow, this is great. So let's fast forward to that 3-month mark, right? Patient comes in, medical assistant puts her in the room. my medical assistant comes back up to me and she goes, hey, Dev, like, our patient's here. I just want to give you like a heads up. I didn't take her after photos yet, but she's saying she's not really sure if she sees much of a difference in her abdomen. We treated her abdomen. So I was like, okay, great. Well, let's take our after photos today, and then I'll put them side by side with her befores, and we'll go in and we'll talk. So we did just that, and guys, the before and after photos were just on point, and it was a night and day difference. She was so grateful once she saw that because it made all the money and all the time that she spent so much more worth it. So please make sure you take them. Okay, so now let's get into some statistics, and I won't spend too much time on this because Travis did from Patient Now, but shout out to Patient Now because they did share these statistics with us, and they're very expensive to collect. But the question that was asked was, when researching an aesthetic practice or provider, what pages on their website interest you the most? So you can see all the way on the right, a small percentage of people are looking at blogs, followed by the About You. Now, I think it's great, of course, to talk about where you come from and where you are now, et cetera. People love that. It builds relationships. But you can see statistically that maybe that's not what's going to influence them as much. Now, what does are going to be your reviews and testimonials. So definitely incorporate that into your practice. If your patient's super happy with their results, people love to see that on social media. An actual patient talking about how successful their treatment was and how great you are as a practice and why. But most importantly, your before and after gallery is what most people are looking at before they even make an appointment with you. Okay, so the question I want to ask you all is, by a show of hands, how many of you would consider reaching out to a practice that did not have prominent before and after photos? Cricket, cricket, cricket. Exactly, and this aligns with the studies that Patient Now conducted, right? 74.8% of people said, yeah, like if they're not showing me the work, why am I gonna spend money there? Okay, so very, very important. Now, with that being said, this means that 4 out of 5 people, about 75% of people, are looking at before and after photos or would prefer to see them. So if you automatically do not have before and after photos on your page or on any social media anywhere, now you're kind of losing about 75% of your business, right? Okay. So now for the fun part, and a lot of this presentation is mirrored by Kara Moncrief, our VP of Commercial Affairs webinar about before and after photos. And the one thing we were missing that I'm so happy we have is the interactive experience here because we have you all here today. So I want you to take a look at this before and after photo here. Okay, just assess it for a second. Now, I want you to take a look at this before and after photo here. Now, feel free to call out, it's just a free-for-all here, but who likes the picture on the left better? What about the right? There we go, I got a lot more yeses there. Okay, and why? Right, exactly. Okay, so I wish we had mics everywhere. So on the right, you can see that we have a blue solid background, right? We can see that the angles are exactly the same, the lighting is exactly the same. When you look at the left, the photo, the result looks great, right? You can see these are both treatments of hyperpigmentation, and that sunspot looks like it's definitely much lighter. But at the end of the day, the lighting makes it a little tricky, the angle makes it a little bit tricky, right? So good job. So now here's another set of before and after photos. Okay, now which one do you like better? This is for treatment of acne scars, left or the right? There you go, exactly, the right. We have a black background here, and you can see that the angles are exactly the same, showing consistency. So good job, guys. Now, if we take a look at the left-hand side, this patient looks like she did get a great result, maybe, and that her acne scars are definitely improved. But at the end of the day, you can see that that background's a lot lighter, so it almost washes out the result. Okay, so now that we are kind of paying attention to all these things, I want you to tell me what you think is wrong with this before and after photo. And you feel free to yell it out, use your voice. There you go. Lighting is key here, right? And when lighting is not good, now we get all of these strange shadows, and it really takes away from the result. So this does look like it's a very good before and after photo or result, but the before and after photo doesn't necessarily show that. Okay. All right, now check out this before and after photo. Now, just by default, I mean, you all are getting my point here, but the lighting's different, right? The lighting is very dim. Maybe the flash was off in the before photo. The background is white, so now it's very difficult to kind of see what you're looking at. The after photo has a black background, which I'd much rather prefer, but it's not consistent, right? And then the flash almost washes out a little bit. Okay. Here we have another before and after photo. So unfortunately, it looks like this before photo was taken, and then maybe they forgot to take the after photo, and now the patient's home, they're taking a selfie, right? So very difficult because the angles are very different here to actually assess what was treated and if it was treated successfully. And then here is an additional before and after photo. And I mean, although the angles are quite similar, they're not perfect, but it does look like maybe there was some numbing on the patient beforehand that was wiped off, or maybe some ultrasound gel because they forgot to take the photo and then said, oh, let me wipe this off really quickly. So now you almost have like a glare, and you can see the flash bouncing off of the patient's skin, taking away from the results. So these are all very good things to look at, and I sound like I'm being nitpicky, but they're so important because they make all the difference in the world. Okay, here is another before and after photo, and to be honest with you, I can't tell what was done in this picture, right? And that's kind of the problem with this, and I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of shadowing that there is, and the lighting's just not there, not on par. Here we have another before and after photo, and you guys can see here, lighting, makeup, everything's different. Backgrounds, shadow. So now I want to show you some good before and after photos, and these are going to be before and afters of acne scars. Now these are textbook before and after photos because the angles are on point. They are exactly the same in every picture. The lighting is exactly the same. You can truly see the result and the improvement in the patient's skin here. I believe the bottom one is a before and after of an Energet treatment, by the way, using a dilute hyaluronic acid. Okay. Something else that you have to look at are angles in terms of depth. I guess that's the way I want to say it. So for instance, here we have a keloid, right? Now, if I were to take this photo from above the keloid to try to show how it was diminished, it wouldn't show depth, and it wouldn't show how that keloid had flattened out over time. So you have to make sure that you're looking at that so that your patients can actually see the result. And then here we have another solid before and after photo. So you can see we have the same background, which is blue, and you can see a reduction in the lines and wrinkles. The lighting's exactly the same to showcase that. Okay, so I gave you a set of before and after photos, and you said both of these were the ones that you would choose initially. But now we're going to take it a step further. So which would you choose? Which before and after photo? The top or the bottom? There you go. You guys got it. You're so good. All right, so the bottom is better. And why? Does anybody want to say why? There you go. Yep, we have a black background, number one. The facial expressions are exactly the same. And again, I'm being a little nitpicky here, but it makes sense, right? So you can really showcase the results. So absolutely, guys, great job. Okay. So now I'm just going to give you a couple of little tips when you are taking your before and after photos. Hopefully I don't go forward. Okay, cool. So ideally, you want to have your patients take their photos in the same room. Now, when I worked for a plastics office, I think we had about 6 treatment rooms. So it was very difficult for us to get photographs in the same room every time. So I think the main takeaway is just making sure that whatever room you're in at least has the same background. So you can use like a black backdrop. I know Kara mentioned that you could also get those blackout curtains that are black. So if you're limited on your space, you can utilize that. You could also get almost like a roll-up that you can kind of place on the wall, and then you can always pull that down so you can take a before and after photo that way as well. The same lighting is important at the end of the day, but more importantly, just making sure you have the backgrounds good. Okay. You do want to make sure you're the same distance from the participant. So what do I mean by that? A lot of times I see the providers initially just try to move around the patient to take the photos. They're like, okay, I'll get this angle, then I'll get this angle. Okay, cool. Don't do that. Have the patient do all of the movement, okay? So some things that can help your patient and guide them are having a mat. I know we have a mat on our portal, and it has numbers on it. I don't know if anybody has that here, but it makes it so easy because then your patient can go, all right, I'll place my feet on 1, I'll direct them to place their feet on 2, then 3, then 4, and so on and so on. It makes every photo so consistent. If you don't have a mat, what you could also do is you can put little stars that are different colors on the wall, and you can have like a little swivel chair. The patient can just swivel to whatever star you're telling them to look at. Everything's consistent across the board. Something else that I used that was helpful was just like a little piece of tape on the floor for myself. So if I was taking the photos, I knew that my portfolio was going to be consistent in terms of how far away I was from the patient each time, okay? There was one time where I had a patient he was coming in for a rhinoplasty, actually. We were just taking pre-op photos of him. This man was like an Olympic swimmer, and I think he was like 6'7". And I am 5'2". So now I'm trying to take a picture of him, and I'm looking up like this, and I could see up his nose pretty much, right? So that is not going to give us a good before and after photo. So in those cases, what you want to make sure you're doing is having your patients sit down. So now I can get to the same level and showcase what I'm trying to showcase, okay? All right, so now let's jump to clothing. When we talk about clothing, you do want to have your patient wear the same undergarment if possible. Now, obviously you can't request the patient to wear the same exact underwear they wore like 6 weeks later. I mean, that'd be very difficult to time. But some options you could give them are maybe having your own garments in the practice, whether they be disposable or whether they be like those terry cloth kind of strapless little gowns. Those are consistent across the board as well. I believe we also had an account, Kara had mentioned this, that would take advantage of Victoria's Secret's annual sale, and they would just buy like a bunch of black underwear, and that would be part of a gift for a patient when they purchased a package of treatments, and that way we're consistent. Ooh, we're back. So that's another option for you all as well. You do want to make sure that on their way over there, they're wearing loose-fitting clothing. The reason why I say that, I know it's difficult, but why we try for that is because sometimes when you're wearing tight clothing, when you take off your clothes, you're going to see indentation. Yeah, marks, right? You don't want that in your before and after photos. You just want people to be focusing on the results at the end of the day. And then also, jewelry. Jewelry should not be in the frame. Now, if somebody has like a little nose stud, totally fine. If they have like little stud earrings, okay. But you don't want like the giant like hoop earrings, or like maybe ones that I have in today. They might take away from the photo. Now you're just looking at the jewelry and not the patient's results, right? Now, one of the hardest things to nail down, so really, really, really take your time with it, is patient positioning. Okay, so I already kind of briefly touched upon this, but I want to dive into it a little bit more. So what do I mean by that? You have to make sure that your patient, again, is consistent every single time. So when you're taking photos, you have to have the same angles. You want to have a straight-on 90-degree angle, obviously looking right at the patient. You want to have your 45-degree angles, and you want to have your 90-degree angles. Now, by a show of hands, how many of you have seen one like before and after post on social media that is like treating the submentum area for fat, and like the before photo is like this, showing my double chin right now, and then the after photo is like this, and then automatically the double chin's gone away? By a show of hands, anybody see that? It happens, it's out there. That's not really gonna show an objective outcome, right? So you have to make sure, especially when we talk about these 90-degree angles, that the nasoauricular angle is actually horizontal to the floor. What do I mean by that? Your nasoauricular angle is the point from the nose here to the tragus, and that needs to be horizontal. If it's tilted this way, my angle's not consistent. If it's tilted this way, my angle's not consistent. It's not a good before and after photo, okay? Another little trick I learned with time as well is the 90 or 45-degree angles can be a little bit tricky. So what I would do is I would turn the patient 45 degrees so that the camera just began to catch the opposite cheek that's not showing, and then I would have them slightly turn away. So now it's almost like the nose is meeting the cheek, and that every time keeps your photographs consistent as well. Then the last tip I'm gonna give you before I pop off is when you are treating somebody who maybe has heavy eyelids. Let's say they came in and you thought they would benefit from a VST treatment, right, to help kind of lift the eyes. You're working on the subbrow area. You have to get before photos that are consistent, right? And what do I mean by that? We compensate a lot when we do have heavy eyelids by lifting up that frontalis muscle, right? We kind of automatically do it. I do it, guilty. So what you can do to just help get an accurate baseline of that patient who has the heavy eyelids is you can have them close their eyes. You can place your hand over their forehead, tell them to relax, and then open. Immediately their brows drop, and now you have a better accurate baseline of the heaviness of the eyes. Then you can showcase your after photos. Okay, so with that being said, I think those are all of my little tips and tricks, but feel free, I'm obviously around all day if you have any additional questions. That concludes my PowerPoint. Thank you guys.